Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Matt. In the last episode, we looked at honor applied to the family and said that while honor could be gained or lost with people on the outside of the family, all family members were essentially in the same boat. So, within the family, there was no challenge in response. In the final episode of this series, we're going to look at relationships with outsiders. The problem is that trust was not owed to outsiders. Do you remember the diagram of the circles we talked about in the last episode? We saw that there were a bunch of circles, one inside the other, and so on. You and your immediate family were in the inside one. Your extended family was in the next one out. And people who were less close to you would be in further and further circles out. We also saw that loyalty was based on how close a person was to you. You would be more likely to side with them in an argument if they were close to you. Well, trust works pretty much the same way as loyalty. The closer a person is to you, the more likely it is that you could and would trust them. The further they were away from you, the less likely it is that you could and would trust them. Basically, with people who weren't close to you, you assumed that they were lying to you until proven otherwise. Perhaps people were telling you the truth, perhaps not. It was hard for you to know for certain because if you remember, you were super loyal to your family and they're going to be super loyal to theirs, not yours. So families would certainly prefer to work with their own family members. You could trust each other. Remember, you're all in the same boat. However, families were not entirely self-sufficient, which means that you had to have some form of cooperation with people on the outside. The problem is that you don't trust people on the outside, but you do need them from time to time. So now what? For starters, having a good honor rating helped. It made a difference if you were considered to be honorable by the community and non-family members around you, but what about times in which this wasn't enough? What if the person you needed to do business with is outside your small little community? How could you conduct business where trust is required, where neither party can trust the other person? Here, we come to the swearing of oaths. Trust can be created by swearing an oath. Suppose you're buying a mule. Perhaps no one in your community has a mule that they can spare, so you have to go to an outsider to buy one. How do you know that the person is selling you a healthy mule and it won't die as soon as you get it home? You can't trust them. The person selling the mule might say something like, "I swear to God that this is a healthy mule." Now what this does is it brings an implicit curse. Basically, God is being called on to be a witness. And the idea is that God will curse me if I call on him to witness a lie. This helps to eliminate ambiguity and create trust. If you're the buyer, you would be a little less hesitant if someone was willing to call on God to be a witness. Obviously, this didn't sort out all problems. People could still lie. But it did help. Think of it like being under oath in a courtroom. You know, when you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Even if you don't believe in God, or even if you're not really sure, most people view this as being a serious kind of situation and are more hesitant to lie than they would be in a normal situation. This is kind of like that. It didn't solve all problems. Just because someone said the magic words, "I swear to God," didn't mean everything would be fine, but it did help to make things a little more serious and official. However, in the New Testament, things change a bit. It should come as no surprise that Jesus changed the way people normally did things. He did that a lot. In Matthew chapter 5, we find this. "Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn.' But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no, Anything more than this comes from evil. Now, what Jesus is talking about here is a swearing of oaths. He's not talking about using so-called curse words. It's not about having foul language or clean language. He's talking about the sort of swearing of oaths that might occur in normal business dealings with people on the outside. And what he's telling people is that they were supposed to give the truth to everyone. You should not be telling the truth just to your family, and then sometimes be telling the truth to everyone else. Let your yes be yes and no be no means that you should tell the truth to everyone. For those who choose to follow Christ, this is one more example of a new set of priorities. Christians were and are to be representatives of God. And as a representative of God, your word should not be in question. You need to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even if you're not under oath. As we're concluding this series, in which we've looked at what it was like to live in Jesus' world and live in an honor and shame culture, I want to leave you with one final thought. In Luke 14, Jesus said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." Now, we value family to varying degrees today, depending on the person. But none of us living with Western values value family like the people Jesus was talking to. From what we have seen over the last several episodes, we can perhaps have a greater appreciation for what Jesus was really asking people to do. Family was the most important thing in their world. So my question is, what would it look like for us to put our connection with Christ above the most important thing in our world? What is the most important thing in our world? Do we value money, success, good reputation, comfort, a stable life? I think this is a question that we need to ask ourselves, because Jesus says we have to be willing to leave whatever the most important thing is to us if we're going to follow him. So here we finish the series on Jesus' world and our look at honor and shame. Remember, I have posted resources for further study on my website, mattdelockery.com. Under the link to the first episode, you'll find a link to a couple of books that will help you dive into this topic a little more if you're interested. And if you haven't done it yet, subscribe to this podcast so that you can keep up with the series to come. And if you wouldn't mind, please leave a rating or review on iTunes. In the next episode, we're going to move on to a new series and expand the format a little bit. And I'll explain more about that next time. Thanks for listening. I'll see you then.